Ladies and gentlemen, it's been 15 years since Vanquish first launched in 2010. We're getting old, and 15 years is enough time for any game to really show its age. But you know what? After all this time, Vanquish is still one of the fastest and greatest third-person shooters of all time, and we consider it a cult classic. But back when it first launched in 2010, it was a complete flop. And I mean, sure, Vanquish was a Platinum game, and all Platinum games kind of have a habit of bombing in the box office, but it still had so much going for it. It was a third-person shooter, which was an extremely popular genre in the early 2010s, and let's not forget, it was directed by the GOAT himself, Shinji Mikami. The same Shinji Mikami that also directed Resident Evil 4. And I don't think I need to go down the list here, but Resident Evil 4 is one of the most re-released games of all time. It's been remade and remastered on every console imaginable. And it's the grandfather of the third-person shooter in general. Like I tell you, 20 years from now, we're going to see RE4 being played on calculators the same way Doom is now. With that being said, you would think that Shinji Mikami would get the same level of recognition as Hideo Kojima, but for whatever reason, that never really happened. I mean, sure, in hindsight, everybody acknowledges that Shinji Mikami's games are really awesome and that he's a great director, but when his games release initially, they never get the red carpet treatment. They're completely neglected by the press, and they're given the harshest criticism imaginable. When he made God Hand, a truly great beat-em-up, it got steamrolled by every news outlet imaginable. We all know the IGN review score story, and Vanquish got borderline ignored as well. Product number 3, the exact same story. Looking on Metacritic, it seems like Vanquish got decent reviews, but the reviewers completely undersold the game. They didn't really sell just how good and how groundbreaking the gameplay was. So what gives? I would say the reason why Vanquish was a complete flop was its unfortunate release time. Vanquish released on October 10th, 2010. That same month, Fallout New Vegas released on October 19th, 2010. A lot of people consider that one of the best Fallout games ever made. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the following month, Call of Duty Black Ops released on November 9th, 2010. And it was one of the best-selling Call of Duties of all time. I'd wager that these two games overshadowed Vanquish in its entirety. And Vanquish was borderline an indie game with little to no marketing behind it. But at the end of the day, Vanquish was still a good game. And it was so good that people are still talking about it to this day. Vanquish is what we would call a sleeper hit. Essentially, it got popular through word of mouth almost exclusively until it was re-released on PC in 2017, where the game finally got its recognition and got promoted by big YouTubers. Today, we're going to review why 15 years later, Vanquish is still one of the fastest and greatest third-person shooters on the market. But before I actually get this review started, I gotta get the shilling out of the way. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the Gaming Grappler. The more this channel grows, the more time, effort, and dedication I could bring to delivering you guys content on a consistent and regular basis. And with that being said, let's get on with the show.
The Russian military is planning on using the microwave energy array to attack the US. As its designer, I cannot abide this misuse for such a heinous purpose.
Okay, we are going to speedrun this segment because the story is not one of Vanquish's strong suits. And I get it, it's an action game, so I'm not expecting much here. But man, for the life of me, I could not recall what the hell is even going on in these cutscenes here. From what I gather, an evil space Russian nukes San Francisco, so now you have to take the fight to him in a giant space colony. Like, don't get me wrong, there are some cool fight scenes here and some funny iconic moments from Sam Gideon, the game's protagonist, but I could not recall the plot of this game if I tried, and I've beaten it multiple times. And I've played a lot of dumb action games like Metal Gear Rising and No More Heroes, but those games were a lot more iconic and memorable. They were fun because of their stupidity, and I don't feel like Vanquish kind of wins in that regard. So yeah, you'll be skipping a lot of cutscenes this time around, and this shouldn't really be a problem, but there are some pretty annoying segments where the game just locks you in place while you walk and listen to your comms. Again, cutscenes, not the game's strong suit, but that's not a problem because Vanquish stands on its gameplay alone. Alright, buckle up everybody, because it's time to talk about the gameplay, and gameplay is the whole value proposition of even touching Vanquish. You play as Sam Gideon, and Sam has one of the coolest space armors since Iron Man himself. His suit is known as the Augmented Reaction Suit, or the ARS Suit for short. And what's unique about it is that it has two unique gameplay modes. It has a boosting mode and a bullet time mode. Using either of these options will drain the exact same stamina meter. And this is important. The philosophy of Vanquish is a gigantic middle finger to the traditional third-person shooter popularized by Gears of War. If you stay put for any amount of time, enemies will flank you from the side, and if they know where you're shooting from, they can react fast enough to hit you. And this is where the ARS Suit comes in handy. Pretty much any time you aim while performing a stylish motion like dodging midair or performing a roll, you'll activate bullet time. Using bullet time allows you to react faster than enemies can shoot you. You can shoot your own grenades in midair, and you can use bullet time while you're boosting. It's also tactical in that if you enter bullet time while you're jumping over cover, you'll get a good angle in midair. Speaking of cover, well, I did open up this video trashing cover-based mechanics. Hiding behind cover is still an important aspect of Vanquish's gameplay. You see, the main difference here is that cover-based mechanics are used a lot more sparingly, and it's done at a faster pace, so it ends up being more thoughtful and tactical. You see, being out in the open is suicide. We're not playing Doom here, so the player has to consistently swap behind cover to get good angles and vantage points. This is where boosting comes in handy here. It allows the player to blast from one end of the map to the other without getting shot at. The point is, the biggest penalty in Vanquish is to be stuck with generic Gears of War gameplay. When your stamina bar bottoms out, the player is left seriously vulnerable. You have to keep in mind here that enemies are fast. If you stay in one spot for too long, you'll be flanked from every angle imaginable, and you'll die in seconds. So managing that meter is one of the most thoughtful and important things you can do to mastering Vanquish. Your melee attacks are also a lot more unique than your typical third-person shooter. You see, most games just give the player a knife or something, but in Vanquish, you get a badass Kamen Rider kick or a Kamen Rider punch. Now, my big issue here is that the damage is just alright, and it comes at the cost of draining your stamina bar. As I mentioned earlier, having a bottomed out stamina bar is a death sentence, and melee attacks rarely kill to make this move end up being worth it. While it is stylish, it's rarely usable in most circumstances. Vanquish is a third-person shooter, and it wouldn't be a complete review unless I started analyzing the shooting mechanics. But before I start reviewing every weapon in the game, I kind of wanted to just gush about the animations here. Basically, what's going on the screen here is that Sam isn't carrying around multiple weapons at once. He's carrying one gun that transforms into other guns, and it is so cool seeing that happen in real time. And I also want to gush about how the way this game handles its upgrade system. One of my biggest pet peeves in action games is forced RPG mechanics. Action games are about your skill as a player, and since most of them are fast-paced, the last thing I want to do is sit around in menus allocating stat points. It kills the pacing of the experience, and it has no place in a game where most of the skill and ability is derived from the player themselves. Now, what I love about the upgrade system is that it all happens in real time. Basically, all you have to do is come across a green box and attach it to whatever gun you're carrying around. The upgrades might be as simple as simply a damage increase, but a lot of the times it'll simply increase your rate of fire or your magazine capacity. And with that being said, it's a lot preferable than a menu-based system. There's also this unique thing, kind of like Cave Story, where if you find the exact same gun on the ground and you have full ammo, it'll slightly upgrade your weapon. And also, like Cave's story, if you take damage and die, your gun will be rolled back 1 damage point. It's kind of cool, and it incentivizes the player to get better. All right, so I'm gonna give you guys a quick little overview for all the guns in this game. I'm gonna start with the machine guns. The assault rifle is a default part of your starting loadout. While it doesn't really deal great damage, it's useful in every range, and it has a huge ammo pool. When you factor in that it's a frequent drop, it kind of becomes your main workhorse in Vanquish. Now, the heavy machine gun and the boost machine gun I kind of found were gimmicky, and they were only really useful to me when I comboed them off of the assault rifle. And basically what that means is that instead of reloading your rifle, just switch to one of these guns to double up the damage. Now, the shotgun, on the other hand, is one of the most satisfying video game shotguns, and that's saying a lot considering I played Doom and Resident Evil. This thing is borderline mandatory for every playthrough. The shotgun is one of the few weapons in this game that can stun bigger and tankier enemies. It does a lot of damage. Now, it does have a lot of the problems that typical video game shotguns have, where it's only useful in close range, it takes a while to reload, and it doesn't have a huge ammo pool. But when you upgrade this weapon, you fix 2 out of 3 of those problems. It shoots fast, and it has a bigger ammo supply. And the only real problem is the range. But guess what? This is Vanquish. You can boost from one end of the map to the other in seconds. So range isn't really a big factor here. This thing, when upgraded, can completely demolish bosses' health bars. Again, I love the shotgun. The sniper rifle is a sniper rifle. I don't have anything to say here. Like, literally, have you played any game ever? But the anti-armor pistol, on the other hand, is really cool. It's basically like the Magnum from Resident Evil. It's a rare drop, but it's like a sniper rifle with none of the downsides. You can shoot enemies from a distance without using a scope, and it has a bigger clip size. And when you upgrade it, you can kind of bypass the problem of it being a rare drop, where it will increase the ammo capacity. Now, the life gun and the disc launcher are kind of gimmicky. I never really used them in my playthrough. They didn't really deal much damage, and I kind of disregarded them. The laser cannon, on the other hand, is one of the gimmick weapons that actually has a lot of utility in the game. Basically, it deals a lot of damage, it has infinite ammo, but the only real downside is that it uses its boost meter. Now, one of the reasons why I never really use it in my playthroughs is that I kind of put a high value on my mobility options and being able to use bullet time, and both of those things are gonna be limited. Like, if you use the laser cannon while you're in bullet time, it'll drain the meter twice as quickly, and that's a trade-off I'm not willing to pay, but it does have its uses. It deals a lot of damage, and there are points in the games where you can use it. And finally, we have the homing missiles. Now, these are basically just used as a method of crowd control. The damage is really not that good at all, but it does have its uses in cleaning up a lot of grunts, so I do use it in my playthroughs. And finally, I've saved the best for last, and that's the rocket launcher. The rocket launcher, when fully upgraded, deals the most damage in this game, to the point that you can destroy bosses in seconds. It's just that useful. Its only real downside is that it only has a ammo capacity of 3 or 4 rockets, but this is easily overcame with the fact that it's a frequent drop. It's always useful, and it deals the most damage. It also has lock-on and homing abilities, and that lock-on time will decrease as you upgrade the weapon, but again, it's not really mandatory. It's not exactly a hard weapon to aim, and again, one of the best weapons of the game. So my default loadout for Vanquish tends to be your main assault rifle, just because it always has ammo, your shotgun for damage, and then your rocket launcher to finish things off here. And again, that's pretty much all the guns in the game. Just a quick comment here, there's 2 different grenade classes in this game. There's your typical grenades, which don't really need an introduction here, and then your shock grenades. Now, shock grenades basically will stun enemies within a certain area of effect, and it's pretty useful for exposing enemies and bosses' weak points. And again, they're very useful, one of the most powerful weapons in the game, especially when you pair them up with melee attacks or powerful weapons like the shotgun or rocket launcher. Okay, so we talked about your basic gameplay mechanics. We went over your mobility options, managing your boost meter, when and when not to use cover, and we even analyzed every single gun in this game. But after all, your guns and your gameplay are only as good as whatever you're fighting. And while there are definitely a lot of fun and entertaining enemies to fight in this game, it's just my personal preference here, but I'm not a big fan of fighting robots. Robots are not that satisfying to fight in general, especially the droney looking ones. Like, just in my honest opinion, if they're not bleeding, it doesn't feel real. And I've mentioned this in other reviews, but blood and violence isn't just there because we're all psychopaths who want to see that. They're there because it's a visual indication that you're seeing damage being done, and it also is more relatable. Killing robots doesn't feel that satisfying. These are just machines that came off of an assembly line. And I get it, that's the entire point of the story, but it's still not satisfying as much in combat as if these things were just aliens or monsters. But again, let's get into it. Your basic Georgie drone units are kind of standard and generic to look at. The game does somewhat inject them with personality, like when you see that Easter egg of them dancing or listening to the music. If there was more of that, they probably would have left a better impression on me. But again, they have a similar problem to the enemies in Dark Void, where they don't really have the best silhouette. But one of the things that Platinum does to completely solve the problem of just not being able to spot these drone-like enemies is that they're often brightly colored, and their eyes shine bright like they're an enemy out of Jinro. It's always like they have some sort of digital marker on them. So again, finding them and spotting them isn't too much of a problem, and that is kind of a good thing. There are different classes of drone units. The yellow drones have more health, and they're a bit more tactical. They'll often try to flank you and get melee range, and they also use grenades. The sniper drones do exactly what they sound like. They're not that really entertaining. They're more of a nuisance than anything. They don't even deal that much damage. The blue drones are very dangerous. Basically, these blue drones are doing their best impression of the Doomslayer. They only use shotguns, and they try to fight at a close range, and they do a lot of damage. They'll often try to gank you. In my opinions, they're one of the strongest enemies to fight in the game. The Romanovs, again, their design is a lot better than your typical drone units, and their silhouette is a lot more noticeable and iconic. This is your very first heavy class of enemies. They're tanky, they have lots of health, and they usually carry powerful weapons with them. Every version of the Romanov has a chance to use their instant kill chest laser. Now again, it isn't a frequent move in their arsenal, and they kind of just do it at random, so it's kind of like an RNG type of thing. But again, it's pretty cool, and while they do have a weak point on their back, it's often hard to expose in regular gameplay. The best way to do that is to use stun grenades or to use your shotgun. Shotguns, again, are going to put you more vulnerable because you're going to get up close and personal, but you can easily stun them and then strafe around them to deal a lot of damage. Now, there are two enemy types that could basically be considered a mini-boss variant. The first one are these Dr. Manhattan dudes, and these guys are melee powerhouses. They deal a lot of damage up close and personal. Now, if you are tempted to just boost away and hit them from afar, they do turn invisible, and they will cut the distance pretty quickly. They're highly aggressive, and they're laser focused on trying to assassinate the player. Now, if you do try to abuse them with a shotgun, they also have some area of effect attacks and an instant kill move. Overall, a pretty fun and entertaining enemy to fight, and I just wish we saw more of them during the campaign. And that's a big theme with these mini-boss classes of enemies, is that they're not really frequent during the base campaign, and my only real complaint is we don't see enough of them. And that same sort of problem is with the Bias. Now, the Bias are actually really cool when you have the opportunity to fight them. They're kind of like, imagine an enemy from Bayonetta, but in the style of Michael Bay's Transformers. They have two different modes, a beast mode and a night mode. And they're both pretty self-explanatory. The beast mode is more chaotic, but its night mode looks like something out of Dark Souls, like it'll just come at you with basic combos. The shotgun is very useful. It's really fun to fight them with that. And otherwise, again, my only real complaint with them is that we just didn't see enough of them. And finally, we have the boss fights. Now, not counting the mini bosses, the actual boss fights in this game, there's not too many of them, but what ones we do have are pretty decent here. And up first is Argus, and Argus can be best summarized as an amalgamation of every single 7th gen gaming trope you could think of. He has 2 different forms he can switch between, and one of them is a giant enemy crab. And get this, the main strategy for defeating him is to target his giant red glowing weak points to expose his core. Now, in both forms, when you fight him, when his core is exposed, he'll start emitting EMP waves as a failsafe. The dangerous part is if you get hit by these waves, it'll bottom out your stamina gauge. But again, they're not too hard to avoid. It's mainly going to get you on your first playthrough, but you've been warned. His crab form is the easiest to deal with. He's not too aggressive in this mode. His only way of attacking you is by swarming the player with missiles or by using his cannon. But again, he's not too mobile. When he transforms into his upright mech form is when he actually becomes a bit of an issue. He's a lot more aggressive, and this time around, he has a giant laser similar to the Romanov mechs that I was talking about earlier. Again, he's a lot more aggressive in this mode, and what I also love is that when you deal enough damage, the quick time events look really cool, like God of War cool. Like Sam Gideon will perform like Kamen Rider kicks, and it's just pure anime. But again, Argus, pretty simple boss fight, but that's to be expected since he's the first fight in the game. He does get recycled in various other scenarios in the game. One of the scenarios is you fight both of his forms at the same time, and he usually becomes more of a problem when he's paired up with more dangerous enemies around him. So again, Argus, pretty simple boss fight and an effective boss fight. The next boss fight you're going to face multiple times in the campaign is the Unknown, and I love this little guy. Basically, he's a tiny robot that surrounds himself with clusters of machines, and it's really not clear what he's supposed to be, but I love it. Now, what makes this boss fight dangerous is that he has an instant kill move when you fight him in close range. So basically, the main strategy for defeating the Unknown is to, number one, manage your distance effectively. While being in close range is dangerous, using the shotgun is still highly recommended. The main way to expose his weak point is to destroy all the trash robots emitting around him. It's not too hard to do. If you slow down time, you can target his weakness as well. And otherwise, again, I just love this little boss fight. Again, it's kind of cute how this little robot just starts running away like a hermit crab without his shell. He's pretty iconic. And most of the times you fight him are going to be in close quarters situations. Like the maps are going to be really claustrophobic, which makes the most out of him. If you ever fight him in any of the challenge maps where he's out in the open, he's really not that big of a deal. He only really becomes a threat when you have to deal with his instant kill move. But again, overall a pretty fun and actually inventive boss fight compared to the Argus fight. And finally, to end this video off on a high note, we're going to cover the best boss fight in the game, and that's Bogey Alpha. And Bogey Alpha is also important from a narrative perspective. It's the power armor that's being piloted by the game's main antagonist, Viktor Zaitsev. And Viktor Zaitsev is essentially the Virgil to Sam's Dante. He's about the same size as the player, and unlike most enemies in boss fights that kind of rely off their huge damage pool and their unfair hitboxes, Viktor Zaitsev essentially relies on his mobility options and his combat mechanics. So this is truly a one-on-one encounter. And again, Bogey Alpha is pretty much a countermeasure to Sam. A lot of his attacks are based around bottoming out the player's stamina gauge. All his grenades are EMP grenades, and a lot of his lasers will directly deal damage to your stamina that'll leave the player vulnerable. If the player is ever at any point vulnerable, Bogey Alpha will zero in on you and try to throw hands at you. Now, you can counter these by using a QuickTime event, but it's also a huge disadvantage to him. If you're smart enough, you'll equip the shotgun and deal some heavy damage on him for what he tries to get up close. So punish him when he tries to get on the ground. The ground is your territory. That's where you're king. Now, for a lot of his attacks that act as EMPs, you can actually cancel them before they become a real problem. You can shoot his EMP grenades out of midair, preventing them from becoming a problem. And if you perfectly have mastered your stamina gauge and how to use it and the correct timing of it, he won't be an issue. You'll be able to slow down time and avoid most of his attacks before they become a major problem here. He's also extremely vulnerable to your grenades. Shock grenades are a no-brainer. They're pretty easy to land on him. And if they land on him, he'll be grounded, where you can land some melee attacks and unload your shotgun shells on him. But your regular grenades are good too. Similar to how you detonate his EMPs before they hit you, you can throw your own grenades in midair and shoot them and deal plenty of damage. So no matter what happens, the player should be in a position where they can deal heavy damage to Bogey Alpha, and it's a really fair boss fight in that regard. Now, I'm not going to spoil this, but just as you fight the Unknown and Argus multiple times through the campaign, you also fight Bogey Alpha multiple times in the campaign. And I don't want to spoil this at all, but the next time you fight him is one of the most hype encounters of the game that I think you should uncover for yourself.
Where do I need to go?
So after everything's said and done, I would have to say that Vanquish is a game that's aged incredibly well. It's especially aged well in the context that it's one of those games that can run on pretty much every toaster imaginable in 2025, and its gameplay loop is good. It's still solid. I think the only thing I really didn't like about playing Vanquish is simply the fact that in the game's campaign, there's just too many of these moments where the game slows down and you have to listen in your comms, and you can't skip those, and they're pretty annoying. But with all said and done, the actual gameplay itself is really fun and it's addictive. The animations look good. And my biggest criticism of Vanquish is that there isn't more of it. I want a sequel where you're not fighting robots, but you're fighting other human beings in power armor. I want a sequel that has even more boss fights. I want a sequel that has some tacked on multiplayer mode like Space Marine 2. I just want more Vanquish. And again, that's my only criticism. I want more. And with that said, I'm the Gaming Grappler, and I'm going to be signing off this video. Have a good one, everybody.